For the first time since the fight had started, the king-tier beast had finally bled, although Fex was unaware of what had happened. Quinn, who had emerged from the rubble, managed to catch everything with his own 2 eyes. Quinn was still injured, his wounds were worse than usual, and even with the use of the blood bank, his body would take a while to heal. "Logan!" Quinn thought. "Engage! Maximum system output!" Logan said as he thrust his fist forward. The Qatar-like weapon suddenly grew longer. The green energy extended and went right through the beast's solid body. "Fex, I'm going to need your help," Logan said as he pulled out the energy blade from the beast. Suddenly, the beast's attention was on Logan. The beast went in for an attack from above, and Logan went to block with the energy blade, but when Fex looked at them both, it looked like watching a tortoise and hare race against each other. Logan was too slow. Seeing this, using his last bit of energy, Fex pivoted and shifted himself using all his strength to dash forward. "Kill the damn thing!" Fex screamed as more blood was dripping down his arm. "Energy blade, maximum output!" Logan shouted, and at the same time, one of the energy blades seemed to respond. It grew twice in size, and Logan slashed down with all his strength. It went through the beast's side, and the sound of something falling to the ground was heard. The green jade-like arm had been detached from its body, and black blood was now pouring out from the wound. "What is that?" Sia asked, amazed at what was happening. "I've never seen a weapon like that before," Layla said. "I've seen one of these before. Or to be more precise, I learned about this before. It's another way to use the beast crystal that was discontinued by the military." "Discontinued? But why?" Sia asked. "As you can see, by using crystals as a form of raw energy, one can create something called an energy blade. The problem is that all of its energy is coming from the crystal, and it needs a constant output to support it. Once all the energy from the crystal has been used, the weapon will disappear. Because of these reasons, the military decided that it was much more practical to use the crystal core to create beast weapons rather than energy weapons." "It looks like the attack was a success," Logan said. With the black blood dripping from the beast's wound, it retreated for the first time, leaping back. Fex wanted to chase after the thing, but when he took a step forward, his wound seemed to have gotten the better of him. He went down to one knee, stopping himself from collapsing on the floor. "I'm more hurt than I thought." There was no point for Logan to chase it either. If he was to chase the beast, he wouldn't catch up to the thing in 1,000,000 years. Suddenly, the beast's wound started to bleed less. It looked like some vine-like structures were starting to cover over the wound. Next, from the wound, a little stump was starting to grow. "Am I imagining things, or is that thing getting smaller?" Layla asked, still looking from the side of the street. "You're right," Peter replied. The group wasn't imagining things. As the stump started to grow, it looked like it was forming another hand. At the same time, the beast was getting smaller in size. "Why don't you lie back down?" a voice said from his side, as he felt a hand touch his shoulder. "Quinn? But how?" Fex asked. "We can talk about that later," Quinn replied while handing the flask back to Fex. "Take it. Heal up." It was tempting for Fex, but in the end, he refused again. "No, Quinn, not to be rude, but you're too slow to go against something like this. You keep it." "Don't worry about that," Quinn said as he walked forward. "Are you sure you would like to add all 6 points to agility?" "Points added. 26 plus 4 agility." When Quinn said these words, Fex felt his confidence. "Who are you, really? Is this the difference between the Punishers and the rest of us?" So far, Fex had multiple guesses about who Quinn was, but all of them seemed to be missing the mark. Still, Fex went off to the side and leaned up against the building wall. Ham, who had been flying and hovering in the air for most of the time, came swooping down. "Ham, if I don't come back from this, I want you to go back to the others. Don't stay here," Fex ordered. "What do you mean?" Ham replied. "I know the wounds are bad, but you should eventually heal from this, right?" As Ham said those words, he started to look at the wounds, but from the multiple cuts that were mainly on his upper body and arms, blood was still seeping out. "Master, are you doing this on purpose?" Fex didn't reply. "And what about the other vampire? If I return, do you want me to inform them about him?" Ham asked. Both Logan and Quinn now stood a few meters apart from the smaller version of the king-tiered beast that they were up against. "Logan, I want you to stay behind me. When I give the call, I want you to attack with all that you have," Quinn said. The beast had waited long enough, instead of charging in as it usually did. It decided to swing out its bladed arm and stretch it out from the side. Right now, Quinn was standing directly in front of Logan. With this attack, it was clear that its target was Logan. "You're not the only one that can do something like that." Quinn threw a blood swipe and then grabbed it quickly with his shadow. He had made his shadow scythe. He swung it down from above, hoping to hammer it down before it reached Logan. Bang! Like a hammer coming down on a nail. The scythe managed to knock the tree root arm, pinning it to the ground. "That attack wasn't that strong last time," Fex said, seeing this. I just... Sia was at a loss for words. They were all monsters. "Can you do something like that?" Sia asked Layla. So far, she seemed to be the only normal one in the group. "As I said, they saved your life earlier. These guys are amazing." As she said those words, she too wished she would be able to take part in the fight, rather than stand by the side. Seeing that the beast was targeting Logan and not him, Quinn knew he needed to do something. Windwalk activated. Activating his boots, he dashed forward and traveled at a speed that had never been achieved by him before. In an instant, he had nearly covered the entire distance and was now directly in front of the beast. Punching the beast as hard as it could in the stomach, Quinn was hoping to make some sort of impact, but it didn't even budge. As its other hand retracted back, it started swinging away, attacking him in the same way as it did with Fex. Only the result this time was different. Every strike was avoided. This speed! Did he hide his strength? Just how? Fex was now even more confused than before. Bloodhammer was still the strongest skill in Quinn's arsenal, but it took quite a long time to perform. However, the hammer strike, with his increased speed, could be performed fast enough. He just needed to know how to land the attack. Right now, he was facing a humanoid-type beast. Not only that, but it had some level of intelligence as well. With this in mind, Quinn threw out a punch from above. Using his speed, he threw out one after another. The first attack was blocked, and when the beast saw the second one, it twisted its body slightly to avoid the blow. Then, something strange happened. It had blocked one punch and dodged the other, yet a third hand had come out and hit the beast right on its temple of its rounded head. "Looks like the phantom punch is a success," said Quinn with a smile. Quinn wasn't so sure if it would work, but it was obvious that it worked, and was incredibly useful in the battle. The standoff between the two continued, with Quinn avoiding most of the blows cleanly. Once again, another blow landed, this time on the beast's neck just above its chest. "Again? Is the beast starting to slow down?" Sia thought. But watching closely, Fex could see that the beast hadn't slowed down at all. Its movements were still as fast as ever, so what was happening? "It's got to be the phantom punch. I can't think of anything else. He's mixing it with the ordinary jabs and hooks. But who taught him the phantom punch, and when?" Even with all these points, and even if Quinn did have a teacher that was in the school, it didn't explain the crazy amount of time it had taken him to learn such a skill. Now, Fex was frightened. The punches continued to descend like a waterfall. "I was wrong," Sia said. "I can't believe I thought he was useless. I'm sorry, Layla. I now understand why you got mad." As Layla watched Quinn, even she hadn't expected something like this from him. Although, the tides had turned in the fight, with Quinn being able to attack the beast several times. It did not affect it whatsoever. The blows didn't leave any wounds or marks, and it had barely moved from its original position due to Quinn's attacks. "It must be doing something," Quinn thought. Otherwise, why would the beast attempt to block the attacks? Still, he wasn't doing enough damage. "Looks like I have to use the hammer strike after all," Quinn thought. Another phantom punch was delivered to the stomach. As the beast went to block the attack, a flash step was performed, and Quinn was now standing directly behind the beast. The movements of the hammer strike had started, and the beast attempted to turn around. As it did, its movements slowed down, and its feet got stuck in the place where it was standing. It hadn't noticed that during the fight, Quinn had moved his shadow down to the beast's feet. Holding it in place, the plan was never to keep the beast there. He knew it wouldn't hold it back long enough, but it was enough time for him to perform the hammer strike. Placing his foot down, he pulled one arm back and snapped the other one out, hitting the beast right in the center. For the first time, it lifted into the air, and when it landed, the beast stumbled, struggling to stand on its 2 feet. "Attack now!" Quinn ordered. "Did I wait too long?" Vorden said as he watched from a window up high. But right now, Vorden could tell what had happened to the beast. It was now in rage mode. With this, the maximum amount of energy from the crystal inside them would pump around their body. Beasts rarely went into this mode, due to the fact they could only go into it once. if all the energy from the crystal was used up while in rage mode. They would die and no longer exist. The other problem was, if a beast was killed while it was in rage mode, the crystal obtained from it would be useless. The Qatar continued to thrust forward. Seeing this, the beast knocked the weapon away, shattering it, as its attack collided against the weapon. Lifting its legs out, it extended like a fast piston, hitting Logan in the stomach. Logan was flung back in the air and was thrown several feet down the street. As he was chucked through the air, several of the spiders that made up the suit seemed to fall onto the ground as well. Fex, seeing this, was now sure. He had made the right decision. Slowly his body was starting to change. His muscles were bulging, his skin shrinking, and his hair was falling off from the top of his head. Ham flew away from his master, looking back at what Fex had become. He had a sad look on his face.
"So you did transform."
Borden had the best view of what was going on down below. He and Rayton had switched places, and Rayton was ready to throw the spirit spear. Just before doing so, Rayton informed Vorden about something. With the use of MC cells from both Logan and Sia, Vorden right now had one of the strongest support abilities out there. As he continued to watch from above, his heart started to sink. It was because there was something else down there with them that had brought back bad memories. Fex, who was leaning up against one of the buildings, was no longer there, or at least was no longer himself. Instead, the sight of what was known as a bloodsucker was there instead. "Quinn, behind you!" Vorden shouted. Quinn had his eyes dead set ahead. As he turned his head, he could see a bald, muscle-bound creature. The claws on its hands had widened. If it wasn't for the clothes that it was wearing, Quinn would never have known it was Fex. "What is that?" Quinn said. "Don't you remember?" the system said. "He has turned into a bloodsucker." "Did he do this willingly?" Quinn asked. "Perhaps for a vampire to turn into a bloodsucker, they must have an immense amount of thirst," the system explained. "My guess is, when he was wounded by the beast, he suppressed his healing abilities, allowing the blood to continue to drain from his body. Vampires aren't often taught this, since a bloodsucker doesn't even see its kind as a friend, which would suggest he is an important figure, perhaps the son of one of the vampire's heads." Although the explanation was interesting for Quinn, he didn't have much time to think about it. He looked to his left, he looked to his right, waiting for one of them to make their first movement. At the same time, the bloodsucker and beast dashed forward. "Damn it, Shadow Cloak!" Quinn said. From his feet, the shadow rose, and suddenly Quinn had vanished from their sight. As Quinn hurried to escape from the area, the two of them clashed in the center of the street. The bloodsucker swiped its claw, while the beast threw out its balded arm. Instead of going over to where the others were, Quinn decided to stay quite close to the fight. In the back of his mind, there was one thing he kept thinking about: the quest. While the beast was in its rage mode, there was only one attack that could do any type of damage, and that was the Bloodhammer. The only question was how. How would he get the last hit? The fight continued between the bloodsucker and the king-tier beast. When a vampire turns into a bloodsucker, their health, or in Quinn's case HP, decreases. Their wounds would also no longer heal. It was a starved state for vampires, a mode that allowed them to grow stronger to consume blood, but also acted as a double-edged sword. However, slowly one of them was starting to get an edge, and it looked like it was the bloodsucker. Quinn planned to inch closer and closer and try to get behind the king-tier beast. Running forward and around the two, he wanted to get behind the fight. As he took a step to the side, suddenly a large claw-like fist came out towards him. The fist was briefly stopped by the shadow, and when he looked at where it had come from, it was from the bloodsucker. "It could sense where I was even with the shadow cloak on?" Quinn thought. "Luckily I already thought that something like this might happen and prepared my shadow just in case." Quinn quickly stepped back and went to his position before. It looked like Fex really could no longer differentiate between friend and foe. For now, Quinn's MC points had reached 0. 0 of 100 MC. The only thing was, now the others could see him as well. "Quinn, what are you doing? Leave it to the two monsters," Vorden said from above. The beast had done the same, as last time after its arm had been ripped out. It wanted to take a few steps back and start to recover, but the bloodsucker wasn't going to let it go. When the beast dashed backwards, the bloodsucker chased it. With a swipe to its chest, the red roots were split open, and the black blood squirted out once again. Obsessed with getting the quest reward for killing the thing, Quinn dashed forward. Seeing this, the Bloodsucker leaped in the air, and it looked like it would close the distance between the two with one jump. The others expected Quinn to attempt to dodge, but instead, he started to go through the motion of the hammer strike, timing everything perfectly when the Bloodsucker jumped. Just when it was about to land, Quinn performed a flash step. Avoiding the attack, he appeared in front of the King-tier beast. Bloodhammer! The beast was already weak, and using all the strength he could, he snapped back his arm and with the punch, released the power of the level 2 blood spray, performing a bloodhammer. Carefully, Quinn had hit the same spot where the Bloodsucker had clawed out the roots, protecting its upper body. Unlike before, the attack seemed to go through. Quest completed. Defeat the King-tier beast. Looking at Fex, a large, thick blue spirit spear was stuck inside the Bloodsucker. Quinn, I can't produce another one like that. Finish him now if you can. A voice was heard shouting from down the street. Looking behind the Bloodsucker, Quinn could see Vorden running towards him. The spear had come from him. Kill Fex? Quinn said. No, he couldn't do that. It was only because of him that they were able to kill the King-tier beast in the first place. While watching what was going on, the girls started to hear a few voices from somewhere. So, just a little further ahead and the beast you encountered before should be here? A confident young voice said. Yes, sir. Every time we wanted to go explore the tower, the beast would come out and stop us, a female voice said. Down the street, a group of travelers was walking together. It was easy to spot them, since each of them had a sticky light patch on them. It allowed the area around the person to be bathed in light. They were the group of travelers who had reported to the military, updating them about the exploration, a female voice said. It looks like there are other people here. Heck, they're kids, aren't they? The group quickly rushed over to the students and was shocked at the state. The students looked quite young. They were a group of 5. All of them had beast gear covering their bodies. The female was the first to approach them, named Lily, who also had a bow on her back. Only hers looked a level higher than what Layla had. Then there were a couple of bald twins. None of them held a weapon in their hand, but their legs were covered in thick boots, while the rest of their legs had light armor. It was a strange sight. They were called Rock and Pock. There was another man who seemed to be staying by the youngest-looking person's side. He had a shield on his back, with a sword sheathed at his waist. The man looked a little older than the others. It was as if he had been assigned to look after the whole team, but after listening to them for a while, Layla quickly figured out that he wasn't the leader. It was the young man standing next to them. The young man had brown, wavy hair that was tied up in a ponytail. His weapon of choice was a spear, placed on his back. It was as long as him in length. The most noticeable thing about him was the air around him. I'm the leader, Andre, the young man said. What happened here? You guys get attacked? Loud footsteps could be heard in the shadows where the team had come from. A figure slowly came out of the darkness. Another beast, and it looks like a strong one, Sia exclaimed in a panic. But the group of travelers didn't look panicked at all. The strange beast looked like a lion and was the same size as one. Its muscles could be seen as well, but on its bottom half, instead of a single tail, it carried several, each with a small flame at the end. The lion approached Andre's side and started to lick him in the face. A tame beast? Layla said. That's right, Lily replied. Andre, the leader of the group, had a beast by his side, and he could very well control it, which meant that he belonged to the Bree family. Depending on their level and control of the ability, it allowed them to tame higher and lower-level beasts. The Brees were incredibly talented when it came to fighting, but while taming a stronger beast, one would have to show it was stronger than what it was trying to tame. With their incredible fighting skills and strong beasts, they were able to work together, creating a powerful force, and eventually climbed up the ladder to be a part of the Big Four. Trying to think quickly on his feet, Quinn took out the flask. However, even before Quinn was able to do that, a strange lion-like beast had jumped in between Vorden and the Bloodsucker. As it pounced towards the Bloodsucker, the flames on its tails grew brighter. The two of them clashed in the center, claw against paw, and surprisingly, it was outpowered and pushed back. Looks like you're going to need my help with this one, Cookie. The young man Andre held out his spear and stood by his lion's side. The two bald twins had appeared, one by Vorden's side and the other by Peter's side. You guys did well to survive against such a thing, one of them said, but you can now leave it to us, the other said, ending the first one's sentence. The twins were insistent, and before they could even reply, they were already trying to pull both Vorden and Peter out of the fighting area. The two boys were taken out of the area, and now Andre and Andy felt like they could fight with no worry. "It looks like this beast has some level of intelligence," Andre said as he jumped up onto Andy's shoulder, before running on top of his shield and jumping right on the edge towards the beast. From the side, Cookie, the lion beast, pounced once again. The flames this time on its tail were, even more, brighter than before, and when they clashed, neither one of them fell back. The Bloodsucker seemed to be slightly stronger, but Andre wanted it held there for a moment. As he thrust his spear forward, he was able to hit the creature right between the ribs. Fex began to scream in pain as the pointy object was jammed into him. "Get away from my friend!" a strange robotic and deep voice was heard. As the group turned to look at the speaker, all they could see was a human figure dressed in a black suit, wearing a demon mask that was covering its bottom jaw, while its eyes were white and shaped like a demon. During the fight with the king-tier beast, he hadn't done this because they needed Fex in his Bloodsucker form. What he didn't expect to happen was that the small group of travelers would be able to overpower the Bloodsucker. After seeing him get stabbed in the ribs and howling in pain, Quinn had enough. Before jumping in to help Fex, Quinn had made the quick decision to put all of his points into the charm stat. 22 charm points. This unlocked the next tier in his charm, and Quinn could tell that it would be different when he used it next. With no time to lose, Quinn needed to reveal himself from the shadows, targeting his blood swipe at the leader, Andre. "Why did you attack me? We're trying to get rid of this beast," Andre said, annoyed at the strange figure. Looking at Andre's fight against Fex, Quinn could tell he was strong. With the little HP he currently had, on top of no longer having any MC points to use his shadow ability, Quinn didn't want to do anything stupid like confront Andre and Andy. He quickly popped the lid of the flask, and straight away he was able to smell the sweet aroma of blood coming from it. "I hope this works," Quinn said. And just like that, Fex turned his head, catching the same smell as Quinn. Now, this was the hard part. Immediately, Quinn started to run off in the direction of the tower, and Fex chased after him. Both of them ran down the street into the darkness. Both of them were now invisible, since they were no longer in the sticky lights that Logan had shot on the street. Quinn started running at full speed, activating his windwalk boots, but he knew it would be useless with the great speed of the Bloodsucker. The only thing he could do was run into buildings to slow Fex down. In one of the abandoned buildings, there was an empty large room. He quickly placed the flask on the floor and ran aside. He was still unsure if Fex would continue chasing after him or go after the flask. When Fex reached the flask on the floor, he immediately picked it up, using its clawed hands. He shook the flask and poured the contents into his mouth without allowing a drop of it to touch the floor. "Well, I'm glad that's over with," Quinn said. While Fex was busy going back to his regular self, Quinn looked out the window and at the tower. "I wonder what's in there."
Hi, Quinn here. Wondering what happens next? If you want to jump the queue and unleash all episodes, click on the link here and install the Pocket FM app.